Welcome to Your Story, Your Justice with attorney Chong H. Ye, founder of the Ye Law Firm in Federal Way, Washington. Chong is a personal injury trial lawyer who represents seriously injured people and families, many from immigrant communities, and fights to make sure their stories are heard with dignity and respect. I'm Leanne Lyon, and today we're talking about the timeline of a personal injury case from the moment of the crash all the way to the courtroom. Today's episode is titled From Crash to Courtroom, the Timeline of a Personal Injury Case. Chong, when somebody is hurt in a crash and reaches out for help, what are the very first things you do to understand what happened and what they need?
Well, the first thing I do is listen, not for legal terms, not for perfect details. I listen for the safety rule that should have protected them and the human impact of the moment it broke. From there, I focus on three simple things. What happened at the scene, how their body and mind are feeling right now, what their biggest worries are. Those early conversations aren't about building a case. It's about restoring clarity in a moment that feels overwhelming.
Oh, absolutely. It is overwhelming to be in an accident like that. And I think a lot of people expect that the process can move very, very quickly. But what does the early stage of a case actually look like in the first few days and weeks after an injury?
Well, I get a lot of questions regarding the process involved. But in the beginning, a case moves quietly. But that doesn't mean nothing is happening. Those early days are about making sure the crash is documented, helping clients understand their insurance coverages, gathering the first medical records, tracking symptoms and daily impacts. It can feel slow because people are in pain and want resolution. But this stage protects the truth before insurance company tries to redefine it. Like we say often, a rush case is usually an undervalued case.
How important is it that somebody reach out early on versus wait and see how things turn out?
So the insurance company, they want to contact the injured person soon after the car accident or injuries because statistics have shown people who were just involved in an accident, they don't really know what to expect. They don't know what to expect from their body as days, weeks, and months go by. So, when you have a full adrenaline rushing through your entire body, you're like, hey, I just want to get this case resolved. I just want to, get the case settled. And when the insurance company offers $1,000, $2,000 and promises, hey, we will go ahead and also pay for your medical bills, uh, you know, people who are desperate, people who kind of don't want to go through the system will go ahead and settle. But what happens in the end is, the people thought to themselves that, hey, I think this is, the first few days, I'm not really hurt. This is good, this is an okay resolution. They'll settle and later on realize their body's not feeling well or their brain is not functioning. So when they try to go ahead and, since the insurance company promised them that they will pay their medical bills, they will continue with treatment and later realize, well, the at-fault party is not really responsible anymore because you signed that release. So they can deny all your future medical bills. And I have had many clients come to me with similar stories like that of their past cases where they try to resolve it on their own.
How common is it that an injury, whether in body or mind, appears later? after the accident? And is it days, hours, weeks, months?
Well, it's very common. I have clients who may not feel anything, for a day or two, or sometimes even weeks, and they realize, they may relate this to maybe they went on a jog, or they were probably on their or they were on their way to help their friend move, or go to their job, and the accident happened, and they attribute this to maybe their job, maybe helping their friend move, etc., and don't really put, hey, could the accident have triggered it? But it's it's oftentimes that these injuries do appear a day, two, or week or two later. Sometimes even month. Well, yeah, sometimes even months. But those are really, really hard to relate to the accident, especially when so much time has gone by.
Sure. How does medical treatment fit into the overall timeline, the treatment part of it? And why is it important for clients to focus on their health while you handle the legal side?
Medical treatment is the backbone of the entire timeline. Your body needs space to heal, and your case needs space to understand the full impact of the injuries. If you settle too early, you risk closing your case before you even know what your long-term medical needs will be. I tell clients, your job is to heal. My job is to protect the story of that healing. When you attend appointments, follow medical advice and speak honestly about your symptoms. You're not just taking care of yourself, you're creating the evidence that support fairness and restoration.
Mhm. And when clients do engage with you early on, are you able to help remove some of that burden of record keeping with them?
Yes, the whole purpose of why partnering up with a personal injury lawyer is that we have experience handling um, a personal injury case from the outset to the conclusion. I try to tell some of my clients who are plumbers or who are carpenters, I like do it, DIY, do it yourself. But I understand if I try to um, paint, do some painting around the house, or maybe fixing something, and maybe my car broke down, and I try to figure out what's wrong with my car.
Mm.
Instead of me trying to do it on my own, and spend hours, possibly days, trying to figure out what was wrong with the car. If I take it to a mechanic, or have a mechanic take a look at the car, he or she will be able to determine what's wrong with the car in minutes rather than hours or days. And
Yeah.
so I feel like when you hire a personal injury lawyer, an experienced personal injury lawyer, whose main job is to assist clients who are involved in personal injury cases. They know all of the intricacies, within the personal injury processes. So number one, you should feel at ease. You should have a peace of mind knowing that your case is being taken care of.
Hmm. Absolutely. So, at what point do insurance companies usually get involved, and what should clients expect during that part of the process? And how do you help? Or how does a personal injury attorney help?
Well, insurance companies get involved almost immediately. Yeah, sometimes they'll call the client or the injured person while they're being transported to the emergency room in the ambulance.
Wow.
Sometime often, within minutes, or sometime often within days. They call early because they know you're vulnerable and overwhelmed. People should expect friendly voice trying to get recorded statement,
Mhm.
pressure to say you're fine, early settlement offers that only covers the first few bills. That pays benefits the insurance company, not you.
Mhm.
The role of a personal injury lawyer is to slow the process down, create clarity, and make sure your own words aren't used against your healing later.
Very important. And we've talked in an earlier episode about how important your story is. I know that some cases settle and others move on to litigation. What tends to push a case towards filing a lawsuit, and how does the timeline change once that happens?
So most cases can resolve without filing a lawsuit, but a case moves toward litigation when insurance company refuses to acknowledge the full impact. They minimize the injuries that don't show up on scans. They argue the client waited too long for care. They refuse to take responsibility for the broken safety rule. When that happens, filing a lawsuit becomes a tool, not to punish, but to restore fairness. Once we file, the timeline slows down because we're now working within the court schedule. There are depositions, expert evaluation, and the careful gathering of evidence. It's slower, yes, but it also creates a fuller, clearer picture of what the crash truly took from someone.
Well, without sharing any names or details, is there a case where the timeline taught you something important, either about patients, preparation, or how insurance companies respond?
Yes, absolutely. I once represented a woman who wanted to settle early because the first offer felt like relief. But something in her body didn't sit right. She wasn't healing the right way she expected. We encouraged her to keep treating and keep documenting. Months later, doctors discovered a deeper injury that explained everything. If she had settled early, she would have been left with lifelong pain and no way to pay for the care she needed. The timeline taught me this: patience isn't waiting, patience is protection.
When somebody has just been in a car accident, what is the very next step that you would encourage them to take?
I would encourage them to call 911 because documentation is everything in personal injury case. I would contact 911, tell them what happened. You know, if you're injured, make sure to ask for an ambulance, medical help, so that an ambulance can come by, or or a paramedic can come by, you know, transport you to the emergency room. It's I get a lot of calls initially from clients or potential clients. Hey, I was involved in an accident just now, or hey, I was involved in an accident yesterday. I usually, when I get that kind of call, I would tell them, you know what? As soon as we hang up, you need to contact, if you're not feeling well, you need to contact the hospital or you need to go to the emergency room just to make sure that nothing more serious. We don't find anything more seriously wrong with your body.
So I hear you saying it's just very important to be evaluated. What if you feel like you're the person at fault in the injury?
Hopefully you have health insurance, or hopefully you have, personal injury protection for your car, from your car insurance. You can go ahead and make sure that you can you can go ahead and get treatments, or have your medical bills covered through those two mediums.
Okay, so you're saying even if you're at fault in the accident, there's a way to pursue the best possible outcome for your story.
Yes, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're at fault, you're not going to be compensated for, you're not going to get compensation, but you do have every right to make sure that you're not, physically injured. Confirm that you're not physically injured, or if you are physically injured, you get the right kind of, medical attention or care that you deserve.
Have you ever taken it to trial where somebody felt their insurance company did cut them off before they were fully back to their pre-injury status?
Oh yes, all the time. Unfortunately, a lot, what happens is, you know, because you only have a certain, I mean, if you have a health insurance
Mm-hmm.
along with your what's called a personal injury protection plan, they could kind of help you. But if you only have personal injury protection plan, if you have $10,000 for, let's say, and you exhaust it, and there is no other way for your insurance to cover it, every all the medical bills from that point on will be on a lien basis or outstanding. So we have a lot, and I do get a lot of cases where the medical bills you know are still outstanding, and in that case we try to settle with the third party in negotiations. But if we can't negotiate a fair resolution, then we will file, and you know 99 times out of 100 we will get a full value of the claim in trial rather than in pre-lit settlement.
Wow, that's an impressive statistic. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
For somebody listening who might be waiting on their own case right now, what would you want them to know about the pace of the process and what's happening behind the scenes?
Well, I want them to know this: silence does not mean you've been forgotten.
Mm.
Behind the scene, we're gathering records, reviewing treatment notes, talking with experts, tracking bills, responding to insurance arguments, and building the foundation that forces the other side to take your story seriously. A personal injury case doesn't move fast because healing doesn't move fast, and healing is a center of everything. You're not waiting in the dark, you're being protected. And when time is right, your story will be ready to be heard in full. What we try to do in our law firm is to ensure that the client fully understands this. And sometimes I get clients, who will say, you know what, we really, really appreciate you spending the time to explain how this process works. Because what we try to do is we try to explain the entire process, and we try to remind them, at each point, hey, remember we talked about this, or we sent you a letter, in our welcome letter, we kind of showed you, or presented to you what the entire process looks like, and we let them know this is at this time, this is where we're at. So as long as the clients are aware of the roadmap from the initial injury all the way to the settlement, I believe that's when they fully we built a trust because we're fully transparent with our clients.
Well, that is it for today's episode of Your Story, Your Justice. If you'd like to learn more about Chong Ye and the Ye Law Firm or talk about your own case, visit theyeLawFirm.com or call 253-946-0577. Thanks for listening, and remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe to the show so you don't miss the next episode.